As we come to a close of 2022, I just want us to also have some reflection on how we've come as a nation. The last 47 years has not been an easy ride for us as a nation. Our country's peculiarity is much more different than many democracies on the face of planet Earth. Many democracies, they come from, for instance, you go to Great Britain, the mother of all democracy. They got one language. Their society has been built in over centuries. Their parliament, they don't have a written constitution like we have. It's common practice that has gone into common law and operation law that they pass from time to time. So ours is different. The most diverse nation on the face of planet Earth. We were fused into one union in 1975, driven by the party that I lead today, the Pango Party. And so for me as president leader of Pango Party, the honors on me is far greater than many other parties, simply because the party was responsible for deliverance of our country's nationhood. And it is really up to Pango Party's members today and the party today to really rise up and to anchor our democracy, consolidate our union as a nation of 1,000 tribes, and to ensure we pass on into the future a better country that is stronger in its system of service delivery, that is stronger and better in terms of the ambience of our law and order environment, and that is delivering to the expectations of people in as far as every facet of service delivery is concerned. So on this note, I just want to acknowledge every one of you. The last 3 years we've tried to do certain things. Chief amongst them is to grow economy to be a 200 billion economy, because we looked into the fiscal space we have. We need to have the buffer, the space, to be strong economically and resilient. When we are strong economically, we are able to ensure that we are financing our mandate. And financing our mandate in sectors like health, education, law and order, of course the enabling infrastructures, all has a cost attached to it. And the cost must be financed. And so our focus in the last 3 years has been to grow the economy, but none of us saw COVID-19 coming. None of us saw President Putin when he decided to invade Ukraine. That happened, and that had a toll on the global economy. As a small import-dependent economy that is impacted by global shocks as far as the economy is concerned, we will live through the last 2 and 3 years. That was one of the hardest, not just for a nation, but all nations on the face of planet Earth. But the 3 years we have survived. We have looked into how we could improvise and improve on where we are. This for us, after 3 years of trialing a flatter public service structure, we have to admit that we need to restore back the office of Chief Secretary. And so this Parliament, when we came together to form this government in Luluwata, one of the key resolutions was the restoration of the office of Chief Secretary. And so we've made an amendment. We've now, by law, installed back the office of Chief Secretary, and we now, this morning, announcing to our country that this office is fully restored, and the Secretary or Prime Minister and NEC would assume the full responsibility of the office of the Chief Secretary to government. And I just want to take this time to acknowledge Ambassador Pomaleu as the intimate Secretary to the Prime Minister and NEC. He will then assume the role as Chief Secretary of State. I want to thank Secretary Tai Samson, Secretary Dr. Eric Kua, and the team at CACC, as well as our FLC and the entire team for making the change possible and for us to make this come to fruition. But as we bring and restore the office of Chief Secretary position, it comes with an added layer of scrutiny on what new department heads are doing out there in our country. Our country cannot move miles if we as leaders, both elected leaders as well as appointed leaders, we are not at work. And today, facing December 25 and often the recess that comes with the late in December and early start of the year, instead of taking up and be on holiday, I just want to appreciate the current leadership. You are still at work in the various offices that you hold, and let me step back as your Prime Minister. I just want to appreciate all of you, department heads, head of constitutional offices, head of our security forces, head of our statutory bodies. Thank you very much for being at work and coming to this occasion to acknowledge the fact that the government has restored the office of Chief Secretary. I just want to say thank you very much. Our country has all the challenges that any emerging nations would have, but we also have greater opportunities. Our opportunities are second to none, especially as we stay in the face of the Asian marketplace. Our opportunity as a country remains endless, but it must start with us working to the best of our ability. As elected leaders, we are time-bound, 5 years in between. But you appointed leaders, you are working very well, and some of you have lived through a few governments now, because you are men and women in your own rights. You have served faithfully in the designations that you occupy. And so you will live on. And if it is not you, then the system you manage will live on. And I always, in one or two of you as we discuss them, I always tell you, the country you and me retire into is a country we have built or we have not built. I repeat this question, repeat this statement. The country you and me will retire into is the country we have built or we have not built. Some have second countries to retire into. I don't know about you, but whether you have second country to retire to, but I will not retire into a second country. I say, Mr. Bruce Alabaster, I'm sorry for picking him, but he chose to be a Papua New Guinean, and this is the place he will retire to. He married here, stayed here, lived here, chose to be a Papua New Guinean citizen. So the country that we will retire into is the country that we are constructing today. So I want each and every one of you, I want to appeal to the inner recess of your conscience. Choose to do what is right for your country. Time is limited. As sure as it is that there is a sunset this evening, it is definite that there is a sunset in your life, in your career. I repeat, as sure as it is that there is a sunset this evening, there is a sunset in your life, in your productive life. And as we are privileged to be given this opportunity by our people, for those of us who are elected, and by your people's government, for those of you appointed, I want you to rise above petty issues, rise above personal interests, rise above what you can do for yourself in this fortnight spectrum, and see the next generation. Is it okay? Many times we are enclosed into the spectrum of a fortnightly. We just look into the next payday. Let's look beyond the payday and see the next generation. What is it that we are contributing to build our country? And as we restore the office of the Chief Secretary, the greater will be the scrutiny on your accountability. As we restore, let me repeat, as we restore the office of the Chief Secretary, greater will be scrutiny of your performance. Because we will restore the requirement of law for you to report back to government by the end of 31st of March every year. Lack of reporting is an offense that will see termination of the parliament's constitutional office holders in everyone. For so long, we've been operating in a modus operandi where reporting has not been an important part of our operation. The office of Chief Secretary, this time around, will be different from the last Chief Secretary. I lived through the last two Chief Secretaries, I lived through the last two governments. For me personally, I've seen how those offices have operated, especially in the last tenancy of the last government. the Office of Chief Secretary was just running the Prime Minister's agenda. That will not be the case. The Office of Chief Secretary will run a national agenda. We have already issued to each and every one of you your key result areas to your ministers. Key result areas is the benchmark in which your performance will be assessed. Your reporting back to government before 31st of March 2023 will have 3 fundamental reporting benchmarks or measurables. What you've achieved in the last concluded work year basically is encapsulated in your work plan, as well as measure against the key result areas we've given you and the result areas we've given you. You've now a plan to incorporate that into the next year's work. So your report next year will be simple. You've given you this much money, that was your plan, you've done this, you're reporting back on this. On what you've done the last year in the context of retiring your own department or agency's plan for the plan that you're operating within. I want to introduce the medium-term deployment plan 4 that is to be launched early next year. As you work to retire 22 plan, all of you would have contributed, and if you have not yet contributed to the shape and make of MDTP 4, then you have these 2 or 3 weeks to make a B run to the National Planning Department, as well as the Prime Minister's Department and Central Agencies Committee, for us to all contribute to what must be clearer MDTP 4 for us to achieve the outcomes for our country in the next 4 years that is coming. Next 4 years is critical. We will be celebrating our 50 years of being an independent nation in 2025. The hardest question is, what is there for us to celebrate? Is our law and justice sector functioning effectively, efficiently, and professionally? Is our education sector functioning better, giving quality education to our children and securing their future? Is our health system delivering to expectations? Is our public sector system functioning with no inefficiency and bottlenecks? These are critical questions that we must answer and unbundle in the next 2 or 3 years as we prepare our country to live life beyond 50 years of nationhood. And so serious work needs to be taken by our generation. Never before has our generation been given an opportunity to construct a better future. It is our time today, elected leaders and appointed leaders, for us to rise up collectively. I ask all of you to take the recess of this festive period, not recess for holiday, but recess into the inner sanctum of your own departments. Take a deep appreciation of what we've done in 22 in the last few years, especially in the context of retiring MDTP 3 and my own government's KRS that has been given to you. I'm speaking of the KRS. If the KRS are unachievable, for goodness sake, this is not 10th commandment. You have every right, through your ministers, to point to us. Mr. Prime Minister, you ask us to do this, but this is the budget constraint, this is the constraint of law, this is the constraint of the operating environment we are in. We feel this is a better alternate and offer solution as you propose that this KRS entrusted upon you is unachievable. You know, at this juncture, let me introduce to you all Saisi Kebao. Saisi Kebao, the Sunday last week, I had the privilege of being with the 50th graduating class of a medical school. And Saisi Kebao was honored as a guest of honor there. He was amongst the pioneer 6 graduates of the class of 1972. And he was honored. The thing I picked about Saisi Kebao was he could have, in 1980, in his own life testimony, he was offered a position at Royal Prince Hospital in Melbourne, or I think that's Royal Prince Hospital in Melbourne. He chose to remain in his own country, to work and service people. He didn't pick up the perks and privilege and luxury of working in Australia. equally competent. He was picked earlier on in his life, but he chose to remain here. He served his country tirelessly for 50 years. You are like that. You choose to remain here. But the greater thing about people like Stacey Kemal, they don't go to Facebook. They don't go to WhatsApp. They don't criticize, but they work to find solutions where they're placed. They work to find solutions within the constraint they're placed in the office, in the place of work. And I was reduced to embarrassment because people like him have far greater talent than I have, far greater contribution to the country than I am contributing. And if he could remain faithful to his duty, 50 years of unbroken service, of total loyalty and service to his country, then you and me deserve to honor that generation even better. The generation of the Somalis, the generation of the fathers and mothers of our country, who brought us thus far. With little resources, they held our country in total unity. They preserved our democracy, the sanctity of our union. They served our country to the best of their ability. The call now is, ask not what your country can give to you, it's already given you enough. You belong to only under 2% of Papuans who are employed. And in the public service, you are better employed than most. Ask not what your country can do for you, but what you must give to your country. There is no other class of Papuans who have a better opportunity to save the future of our country than you and me today. Let's not waste time. Let's not squander time. Let's not waste resources. Let's not squander resources. Let's not play around and monkey around. I expect immediate outcomes. I am not a new government. I am a continuing government. By 31st of next year, every one of you report must come in as to how you held yourself in running your departments and agencies. You're not submitting reports, submit your resignation. Simple as that. You must now step up. Law requires, Public Finance Management Act and Public Service Management Act requires of reports to come into central government, not for us to be punitive, but for us to look into how you're doing so that we assist you get better. We resource you better. We empower you better. We work with you to eliminate the impediments so that together we could work for the next work year and build on to achieve outcomes for our country. Ambitions, goals have been set. It is national leadership's prerogative to set visions and aspirations. The journey we are traveling on is not a new journey we're taking. It is not a new road we are traveling on. That is the same road our fathers saw in 1975, where we don't leave one place or one person behind, where this country becomes an equal place for all, irrespective of ethnicity, language, culture, religion, gender, whatsoever. And when we took back office, we took our country and put it back on the road that Somalis launched in 2010, the Vision 2050 road that he launched. Take back PNG philosophy, making PNG the richest black Christian nation, identity that this government is associated with. If you look and care to look at Vision 2050, it talks about this in its own form. This decade talks about making the economic transition. This is the economic decade in the 40-year time frame of the Vision 2050. In this decade, we must make the economic transition from being an economy that is dependent on aid and grants to an economy that is self-sustaining. And so we are walking that same path. Our fathers, especially the father of our country, Somalia, mounted in 2010. He mounted based on how he saw the country in the 1970s. And I just want you all, as we take recess this December, to go back to your organizations, take stock of how we've done in 2022. I know 2022 had a big punctuation mark in between. A punctuation mark was the election period, where all of us were in deep recess because politics had to come and go. But we've now regarded from the government has settled, my government is settled. My vision is the same vision, Vision 2050. That by the end of 2050, we want our country to be middle income nation. I've given one where the richest black Christian nation, but that is the same destination that Somalia made in 2010. By 2050, we must be the top 50 nations on the planet. What is wrong with having that ambition? We are a nation that is intensely blessed with diversity of resources, including our human beings. So let us work towards this one. The onus is on all of us, ministers and appointed leaders, because it's really the ministers who are running the different portfolios that all of you work within and under. And so for us as ministers and in cabinet, and for all of you who are leading those various organizations, I just want you to go back, take stock, and realize that there is no one else except yourself who are placed to make it happen for our people. As we prepare next year, as we come early on, there will be another program called Road to 50 Years and Beyond. We will mount this, and so as we launch our vision, beg your pardon, our MTDP for early next year, one of you will come again. We will mount activities for next year and for the next 2-3 years to beyond 50 years of nationhood. Again, all of you will find a space and how we all participate to program our country to live beyond 50 years of nationhood. And so for today, thank you all for showing up big. We will restore the National Monitoring Authority to report directly to the Chief Secretary and myself. That will be there to also ensure that the districts, the provinces, and the sectors are working. And that authority will be custodian of making sure that the ticks that needs to be ticked off in as far as our key focus areas are being ticked, and to ensure that resources that are allocated, especially as our government programs to transfer substantial resources to our districts and to our provinces, as well as funding our key national government focus. And next year, restoration of the National Monitoring Authority will be made, but they will be different. It will not only be fueled by us just in the public service, we will try to also embrace key stakeholders in our community. They must be also part of this, so it becomes a community-wide sort of authority that has all stakeholders inside, and they check our government work as we move into the next medium term. Important medium term coming up. In this medium term, we will be making the transition out of our 50 years of nationhood. As I said earlier, if you have not yet contributed to MDDP4, make a beeline for Secretary Planning, as well as our Chief Secretary, and hopefully you could find a space in the MDDP4. Together, that MDDP4 must be the vehicle towards us achieving the big picture for our country that we all ambitions about. Thank you very much for coming by. I wish you all a Merry Christmas and travel through the Christmas period and New Year safely. As I always remind everyone, last night I was with some group of in my leisure. I tried to walk in the golf course. I recruitment drive for those who want to play golf. Go to the Royal Pomaleu Golf Club, and instead of just walking, you could hit some balls with you. I was there, and there was a floor of drinks, and I said, be like fish. You know what the fish do? They live in water, they live in the sea, but they're not drunk. They don't allow the water to suffocate them and drown them. They control the environment, they live in the environment, they control the environment. So as you travel through this December and prepare for the start of 2022 work year, control the environment you're in. Plan for how your department could come into 2023 work year. We look forward to the central agency, we look forward to working with you so that you and me can make better opportunities that we have to save our country for the better going forward. Congratulations, members of Pomaleu. You are now Chief Secretary restored, and we look forward to you working, not as equivalent, but as the boss in the public sector directly for every public service, and for us to get, more importantly, get to achieve things that we envisage to achieve for our people going forward. Well done, congratulations this time, and we look forward to each and every one of you contributing to make work better. God bless.